Every teacher has the potential to have a student identified with a visual impairment assigned as a member of his or her class. The design of this professional development provides an overview of the terms, supports, and services that surround a student identified within this category. Specifics as to the unique needs of the individual takes place as a part of the planning process for the student in their ARD or Section 504 meeting. At that time, detailing supports for the student are a part of the process. The purpose of this presentation is an introduction to the foundational information that you may need. The term visual impairment is a generalized term that encompasses a wide range of conditions of the eye. These conditions have an impact on the student's ability to access print or other resources that use vision. By definition, a visual impairment is a decrease in visual functioning that cannot be fully corrected with a glasses prescription. Decreased visual functioning can mean either a loss in clarity of vision or visual acuity, or a restriction in the visual field. A student may also experience a loss in both clarity and field. Visual impairments range from mild to a total loss of vision. No two students have the same manifestation of the impairment. The term legal blindness identifies a specific level of visual impairment. It is a medical term that defines one with a corrected visual acuity of 2200 in the better eye. This number indicates that what one with typical vision can see at 200 feet, one with legal blindness can only see at 20 feet. In very rough terms, what one with typical vision can see from the 50-yard line on the football field would come into visual perspective at the 10-yard line. Reducing that to the classroom experience would look like what typically can be seen at 16 inches, potentially the distance from the eye to the paper at the student desk, would be visible to an individual with 2200 vision only at 1.6 inches. Legal blindness can also indicate a visual field restriction of 20 degrees or less in the better eye. A licensed ophthalmologist or optometrist can only determine this through medical testing. These images simulate the effect of various diseases that affect vision. Beginning in the upper left corner, the picture shows a typical view. The other images are 4 of the common diseases that affect the retina. The second one at the top gives the view of one with macular degeneration. When an individual has diabetic retinopathy, they may have vision that has random blackout zones, such as the one at the left center. Glaucoma and retinitis pigmentosa progressively reduce the field of vision, simulated in the center and bottom pictures. Other conditions manifest uniquely for each individual. Lack of clarity and missing portions of the field range are the most common indicators. When a student has reduced visual acuity, being close to the visual supports in the classroom is a necessary accommodation. Even with corrective lenses, a student with significant visual impairment may need further accommodations. The Individualized Education Program, or the IEP, or the Accommodations Plan through Section 504 will designate specifically what each student needs. Some common examples include a front row position or an unblocked view of the focal point in the classroom. The size of print may need to be greater than what is typical. Official large print documents are available for publications or are created to meet the student's needs. As a point of clarification, typical high school materials are printed in a 10-point font. A student with a mild to moderate visual disability may need 14-point font in order to access those printed materials. Scantrons for answer documents are not visually accessible. Arrangements need to be made for students to have an alternative response method for classroom assessments. For use on the STAR or the EOC, accommodations need to be designated in the Individual Education Plan or the Individual Accommodations Plan in order for them to have access of alternative answer documents. Students with visual impairments require extra time to read printed material or analyze graphics. Students experience what is known as visual fatigue, as they must work harder to see what appears to come naturally for those without a visual impairment. Some students use magnifiers to enlarge information. These range from small handheld devices to electronic or computerized images. One's visual field is an arc-shaped range in which an individual perceives visual information. A typically sighted individual might recognize the value of the full field of vision while driving. We use our peripheral vision to monitor traffic and see all that is around us. The teachers use this as those eyes in the back of their head that allow them to monitor their classroom, even while focusing on something else. If you have ever had the frustration of sitting in a conference or at a concert right behind a column, you will understand what it is like to have a reduced field of vision. An impairment that reduces the field blocks visual access from one or more parts of that field. A few typical accommodations that may be included in a student's IEP or IAP include preferential seating based on the best part of the student's visual field. For example, if a student has a left side visual field loss, then seat the student on the left side of the room so that they can use the right field to see the board and the teacher. Desk copies of wall words, class notes, posted reference materials like anchor charts, and presentations allow the student to access the information using the best parts of their vision. A slant board or upright page holder for desktop materials often increases the visual field access. There are hundreds of examples of materials and equipment that are used by individuals with visual impairments. The ones seen here are the ones that we see most commonly in the school setting. The Perkins Brailler and the Braille Note are both tools that assist the student in producing written work. The Perkins is the traditional manual model. The Braille Note is electronic and reads the text back to the student. It has the potential to download to a computer. Magnification devices are both electronic and non-electronic. They come in multiple sizes and shapes to meet the needs of the student. Both age and level of impairment help to determine the tool that will be most effective. Equipment such as calculators with large print on the buttons and the screen, and also have a voice system to read back the information, assist the student in participating and performance. Earbuds used in the quiet setting minimizes the distraction when the student is using a talking device. The white cane assists an individual with a significant visual impairment to navigate in their surroundings. The orientation and mobility specialist provides instruction in the use of the cane. Braille and large print are methods of providing text to a student in a way that is accessible despite their impairment. Some students with visual impairments need extensive assessment by a teacher for students with visual impairments and a certified orientation and mobility specialist. Most students who meet the definition of legal blindness require a special education evaluation. The VI teacher and the certified orientation and mobility specialist, often known as the COMS, C-O-M-S, help to determine if the student needs specially designed instruction through special education, or reveal the indication that a 504 accommodations plan meets the needs of the student. iMedical information is required as a part of this evaluation. Students who do not meet the definition of legal blindness generally are appropriately served on a Section 504 plan to address accommodations, because they do not need specially designed instruction. This graphic identifies the bodies of students within the general enrollment who may have an identified condition. Students requiring supports and services will either be served through Section 504 or through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, known as IDEIA. Section 504 identifies the accommodations which a student needs to have equitable access to the instruction in the general education classroom. This may include, but is not limited to, large print, magnifiers, and instructional considerations tailored to the student with a visual impairment. If specially designed instruction is needed for the student with a visual impairment, special education becomes the foundation for the support that the student needs. The process of learning to read Braille and learning the environment with a certified orientation and mobility specialist are part of the special education services. There are other conditions that impact the way one's eyes and brain work together. A student may have a diagnosis of a visual dysfunction, such as ocular motor issues, accommodation difficulties, or changing the focal distance, convergence insufficiency, where the eyes are not working together to focus on something, especially on something up close. Recently, there has been an increase in the number of students who have been evaluated by vision therapy clinics in our area. The visual issues identified may affect academics, especially reading, and in the past have not met the conditions for a visual impairment. Students with these visual function disabilities access instruction through Section 504 protections and accommodations that address their identified condition. Our legislative system is currently drafting considerations for categorization and evaluation methods for conditions such as these. The most common accommodations considered for a student with a visual dysfunction easily fit within the classroom. For ocular motor difficulties, try using line markers or a pointer to help with following words. A typoscope, such as this one, enlarges a single line of print. I happen to find it quite handy when I'm trying to look at data or numbers on a large document. A reading stand or slant board allows the student to position work in a focused way with less fatigue. For difficulties in changing focal point, provide a completed copy of class notes or a desk copy of wall words or other classroom or posted reference materials. Students with convergence insufficiency may utilize a place marker when dealing with text in all content areas. The use of extra time to complete assignments is needed due to the effort required in visually focusing on the work. Frequent vision breaks when reading or doing near work is needed due to the fatigue. New information is forthcoming as the legislators decide what they are going to do concerning visual functioning and visual impairments and the evaluations that are needed for all students. Each child is unique, and you will learn more about their specific needs during the ARD or the 504 committee meetings in which you participate. Vocabulary with which educators need to be familiar concerning the needs of students with visual impairments include Braille. Braille is a form of written language for individuals who have blindness. Representation of characters is by patterns of raised dots felt by the fingertips. Districts purchase some textbooks and other materials in Braille. Transcription of other resources occurs locally in order to provide equitable access to all reading materials provided to the classroom. Orientation and mobility. Orientation and mobility, sometimes known as O&M, is an essential part of instruction for an individual with a visual impairment. Specialty lessons in learning how to navigate the environment and do everyday activities without the benefit of sight are included in the provision for these services. As of September 1st, 2014, state law has required that all students served through special education with an eligibility as a visual impairment receive instruction in what is known as the Expanded Core Curriculum, or the initials ECC. The Expanded Core Curriculum serves as the foundations for the IEP carried out by the teachers certified in visual impairments. The term defines concepts and skills that often require specially designed instruction with students who are blind or visually impaired in order to compensate for decreased opportunities to learn incidentally by observing others. The curriculum is developmental and spirals students through a series of lessons that leads them toward self-advocacy, independence, and the use of the accommodations that they need within the instructional setting. Specific areas within the Expanded Core Curriculum include compensatory skills to access academics, which includes, if appropriate, Braille instruction. Sensory efficiency teaches students to use auditory, visual, and tactile skills to interact with their environment. Assisted technology addresses specific technology skills needed for one with a visual impairment. Orientation and mobility addresses travel skills and is specially designed instruction provided by the Certified Orientation and Mobility Specialist. Daily living skills, social skills, communication, and recreation and leisure become a part of the free and appropriate public education for an individual with a visual impairment. Content teachers must work in collaboration with the teacher for the student with visual impairments concerning accommodations and specialized equipment. This will enable the students to generalize the skills that they learn in the Expanded Core Curriculum and access the text as essential knowledge and skills alongside their peers in your classroom. Through the Department of Special Education, professionals with expertise in specific areas provide services for students with visual impairments. Teachers certified in the area of visual impairments provide direct instruction either in the classroom setting with peers or as a resource period. Northeast Independent School District currently has 6 itinerant teachers who provide services throughout the district. They follow the goals and objectives in the IEP, which includes elements of the expanded core curriculum that are designed to meet the needs of the student with the visual impairment that go beyond the academics of the text as essential knowledge and skills. A certified orientation and mobility specialist holds a specialty certificate from a nationally certifying organization. This certificate is required in order to be eligible for the position. Northeast currently employs 2 orientation and mobility specialists who are certified to provide evaluations and direct instruction that assist the students to navigate within their environment. At a young age, this centers around their home and their school, and sometimes their neighborhood. As students mature, they expand their knowledge into the full community, including access to public transportation and how to utilize other resources within the community. This means that the Certified Orientation and Mobility Specialist extends the classroom into the community and often beyond the typical school day. An individual who holds a Braille production certificate from the Library of Congress transcribes printed information into Braille. This tedious process uses multiple methods of production. Even with the electronic systems that are available, the one individual employed by our district is constantly at work in producing instructional materials for use in your classroom. When asked to provide documents that need transcription, sometimes 2 or more weeks in advance, it is because we only have one individual who is doing all the transcribing for all of the students in the district who are using Braille. You have heard it said that it takes a village to raise a child. We are that village in the educational setting. There will be students on your campus and in your classroom who have disabilities that will need support from special education and from you as their classroom teacher. We can do this when we work together. It's time to shake out our capes, put them on, and start a great school year in supporting our students.